Are you a chubby little boy that can't seem to lose weight?
Yes, I'm so chubby. Help me.
Do you want to lose some fat but you're not sure how to go about it?
I eat too many pancakes with blueberry syrup.
Then join me on today's video where I'll show you how I got from this all the way to this. For those of you who have been following my channel for a while, you'll know that in around December, I started a weight cut where I went from 196 pounds all the way down to 177 pounds. And I did this very safely. My workouts didn't suffer. I didn't lose too much muscle mass, and I have the DEXA scans to prove it. So if you are an elite athlete, or at least a seasoned athlete, and you want to lose a little bit of your post-holiday fluff or get into race weight, I'm about to show you the best way how in 8 steps. It's a lot of steps, but each of them are absolutely needed if you want to lose weight and be your desired body. But before I continue, please know I'm not a medical professional, so please contact your personal physician if you have any questions or that sort about diet and nutrition. With that said, many of us, especially older athletes like me, I'm 31, we tend to get a little bit heavier than we used to, especially during the off season. And this is just because as we get older, you naturally get heavier. I'm not as light as I was in high school. So through trial and error of cutting weight over the last few years, I've really dialed in a good program. So step 1 is have a goal weight in mind, especially if this is your first time cutting weight. You want to have a goal in mind, and it has to be a reasonable goal and not much from your baseline. Meaning, if you weigh 150 pounds right now and there's a little bit of fat on you, set a goal like 145 pounds. Because the problem with not having a goal weight is when you are cutting weight, you never really know when to stop. You think you feel good, and you don't stop. As soon as you're not feeling good anymore, you're going to feel like trash. You might suffer from reds. You might be irritated all day, anxious. You might have lack of sleep. Your workouts will suffer. So it's important to have a goal weight in mind, and it has to be, especially if it's your first time cutting weight, you need to have it within a reasonable ballpark. When it's your second, third, fourth, fifth time cutting weight, you can be a little bit more aggressive, as you will learn so much about your body and you will learn so much about how your mentality works too around food. And not only that, you're gonna figure out like a lot of what you eat, and what you didn't think you ate a lot of and what you did think you ate a lot of are probably not going to match. So step 1 is to have a goal weight. Step 2 is you're going to weigh yourself every single day at the exact same time. When you start weighing yourself, just treat it as a number. You're gonna weigh yourself one day, and then the next day, and the next day, and all the weights that you're gonna see, they're just numbers, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna write them down. You're gonna write the date, and you're gonna write what you weighed every single day. The reason why we do this, you need to know where you started, and you need to know the trend you are heading. Without the actual weight number, you don't know if you're losing weight. It seems really simple. Now, a huge problem, like a lot of athletes that I've dealt with get into, is they'll say stuff like, oh, I'm starving myself, and I woke up, I weighed myself 4 or 5 days later, and I'm actually heavier than I was 5 days ago. So 1, don't starve yourself. And 2, if you're only weighing yourself once every 4 or 5 days, you have no idea what you weighed in the days before. You might have actually weighed less in those days. But most importantly, which matters most actually, is your day-to-day fluctuations in cutting weight matter way more than your actual calorie deficit. Now, I know there's a lot of arguments online. The weight cutting and the weight management space is just full of like, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this. That's why I'm specializing here. If you're an endurance athlete, that this video is for you rather than your everyday ma and pa. But let's assume that 3,500 calories is in a pound. So 1 pound of fat equals 3,500 calories. If you are in a 500 calorie per day deficit, which equals around 1 pound per week of fat, your day-to-day fluctuations will be 4 or 5 pounds. Yet, if you're in a 500 calorie deficit, you lose a maximum 1/7 of a pound of fat per day. So if you drink a lot of water before bed, and you drink a lot of salt, maybe some pop, some soda, you're gonna find that you might wake up the next day heavier, even though you stuck to your calorie allotment. You're only supposed to eat a certain amount of calories, and you did, and you expended some. So this part's a little bit advanced for step 2, but we'll get into more of the how many calories you should eat and calorie deficit and what that all means a little bit later. But one last thing on weighing yourself every single day is you're going to find right away that you're going to be more mindful of what you're eating, consciously or subconsciously. When you start writing down numbers every morning, you're gonna be like, oh, well, should I have that extra portion of dessert? Like, what am I gonna look like tomorrow? And these thoughts are completely natural to have, but just like make sure you don't overdo it. but as soon as you start monitoring what you're doing, it's almost like someone else is watching. You change your behavior. So that's also a really important part of weighing yourself every single day. Step 3, count your calories. Now, whenever I say this, people immediately roll their eyes or they just dismiss like, okay, I'm not gonna do that when I cut weight. But if you wanna be really scientific about how much you're eating and how much you're expending energy, and you want that deficit, you want the expending energy to be more than the amount intake, you have to count your calories. And it's way simpler than you guys think. Once you get into the habit of it, it's really easy. I use Chronometer, but there's other platforms, other apps, things like MyFitnessPal and a few others, they're escaping me right now, that all track your calories. And what you do is you buy a scale, you have a notebook, you have a pen, and you write down what you eat. You weigh what you eat and you write it down every day. And at the end of the day, you plug it in your app or your website. I plug it into Chronometer, or you can just plug it into Chronometer directly as you're measuring it. It takes an extra like 30 seconds. Sure, it's a pain sometimes, but it really keeps you accountable to what you're eating and you know exactly how many calories you've eaten in the day. Step 4, now that we're talking a little bit about food, is you want to keep your protein high. I use Dr. Andy Galpin's graphs and metrics on what to do when you're cutting weight, on exactly how much protein to eat. And also, I forget his first name, Stellingwerf helped write a paper. I actually emailed Stellingwerf asking him his opinion on the papers. And guys, when you find a study you like, if you find the email address of some of the people who were the authors of the study, they respond. It's actually amazing. I asked about cutting weight and he gave me his opinion on things. But what I found best is if you eat around 1 gram per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, that you should be eating around 150 grams of protein per day. And we do this is because when you're cutting weight, you're just gonna lose a little bit of muscle. And if you're not eating enough protein, your body won't just cut fat out, it'll also eat at your muscles. So you wanna keep your muscles as strong as possible. You wanna keep the recovery strong because we're not gonna sacrifice training here. So eat around 1 gram per pound of body fat. I found really successful during my last 2 weight cuts. Step 5, cut the fat. As I said earlier, you're going to be surprised the macros you're actually eating. The amount of protein, the amount of carbs, and the amount of fat you're eating. If you haven't measured it before, you'll measure it and you'll be like, oh my God, I thought I was eating more protein, I thought I was eating more fat, I thought I was eating more carbs, and it won't be where you thought it was. Me particularly, when I started tracking the amount I was eating, I found that I ate a lot more fat than I thought I did. I did not eat nearly as many carbs as I thought I was. And my body just feels better when I eat more fat. So you have all of these papers where you have where they recommend you eat, I think it was like 4 to 8 grams per kilogram of carbs per day. I think maybe even 8 to 12 on some. And I struggle to get 6. I have to really focus. With that said, I cut the fat out of my diet for that 500 calorie deficit that I was talking about earlier. Because again, my goal was to lose 1 pound per week. And now how much weight you want to lose per week is up to you. To be honest, I wouldn't go over 1.5 pounds. Because especially if you're an endurance runner, it starts to really affect your performance if you're going over 500 calories per day, which equals 1 pound per week. But in order to cut those 500 calories, it has to come from somewhere. Per gram of fat equals around 9 calories. And as a middle distance athlete, I use carbs way more as a fuel than I use fat. And I already consume a lot of fat, so I cut my fat accordingly. And again, I got some good results. We want to focus on fueling, and those carbs are going to help fuel us during the workouts. Now, I will say this too. If you already eat a lot of carbs and protein and you're already low on fat, maybe you'll have to adjust the amount of protein and carbs you're eating just to match that 500 calorie deficit. Because if you go below 0.3 grams per pound of fat, you start getting some hormonal issues. So you don't want to cut your fat too low. Make sure every single day you have at least 0.3 grams per pound of fat. Step 6, count calorie expenditure. We already touched on it a little bit earlier, but along with counting your calories, you want to understand how many calories you're actually expending. Now, this gets a little bit more complicated, and this is what turns cutting fat into a little bit of an art. I use my Garmin to estimate exactly how much calories I burn per day. And because I have my weight over time, I have my calories in and my calories out in 2 different columns on my Excel spreadsheet, I can kind of match the amount of weight I'm losing to the amount of energy I'm expending, the amount of deficit I have, I should say. And I found that the Garmin, especially when I'm wearing a heart rate monitor, which I can't recommend enough, because when you're running, you want to know exactly, or as close as possible, how many calories you're burning. Because if you're burning, say 1,200 calories in a workout and you're 30% off, that's 360-ish calories differential. And with a heart rate monitor, instead of 30% off, maybe it'll be 10% off, which is much more agreeable. Now, I know there's a bunch of studies too that claim that the watches and the Garmin watches, all the smart watches, aren't entirely accurate, but I found that they're relatively accurate. The alternative, and it's also a good alternative, is there's a bunch of websites and apps that will estimate how much you're burning in a day. So if you go for a 60-minute long run, you can plug it in, you can plug in your average heart rate or things like that, and you can get in also a very reasonable estimate. I find it easier to use my Garmin. I find it easier to have my heart rate monitor with it, and you'll understand these things after a while that, you know, for me, I understand exactly how inaccurate my watch is. Whenever your watch is inaccurate, it's always going to be inaccurate in the same way every time. I would assume so anyways, and from my experience, it has been. For example, if I have a hard workout, I know my Garmin will undercount my calories burned by 250 to 400. And I see this because when I look at my weight loss, when I was matching 500 calorie deficit every single day, I was losing, I think, a pound, like 1.3, 1.4 pounds per week consistently, and I needed to change that. So I made the adjustment on whenever I was having a hard workout day, I would just add 400 calories, 250 to 400 calories to my calorie expenditure, and then boom, I hit my 1 pound per week. Step 7, log everything. Make an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheets. Make whatever spreadsheet you want. Every day you weigh yourself, plug it in. All of your calories in, your calories out, plug it in. You will have an overall map after a while, over months, of exactly how much you've eaten, how much energy you've expended, and your weight. And you'll find that, say, after 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, or even 2, 3, 4, 5 months, that if you're in an extended weight cut, the calories burned per day should all add up to a certain amount that would equal the amount of pounds you've lost in your weight profile. It should be really close. If it's really off, something's not right. You're not counting your calories properly, or you're not making the best estimation of your calories burned. But a really cool metric that I've added, I haven't seen too many other people do this, but you know, I'm sure it's popular, is I have a 7-day average of my weight next to my actual weight. And the reason why I have a 7-day average weight is because, again, your day-to-day fluctuations matter more than your actual calorie deficit for the day. So every day I'm waking up 2 pounds lighter, maybe 3 pounds heavier the next day, especially because I'm a bigger dude. But over 7 days, you can see a trend. You know, every day it'll go up or down 0.1, 0.2. So it really smooths out the process and you understand where your weight's going. So if you wake up 4 pounds way heavier than you thought you would, it evens out by the 6 days before that. And this is also good because, say you think you're in a deficit, but after 2 or 3 weeks, typically I give around 3 weeks, especially the first 3 weeks. Like your first 2 weeks, if you're not seeing any weight loss, but you're staying the same weight, give your body some time to adjust because you're changing so many habits that you don't even realize. But after 3 weeks, let's say, you're still not losing weight, that 7-day average is just staying the same, then something's off. You have to change something. Something's wrong. But if it's going down, you're on track. If it's going up, you're doing the opposite of what you want to do. And the 8th and final step is sleep. There's been plenty of studies that say the less you sleep, the more likely you are to eat more the next day. And guys, like this is so prevalent that whenever I sleep poor, this is so prevalent that whenever I sleep poorly when I'm cutting weight, I throw that day out the window in terms of having a 500 calorie deficit. I'll eat even a 500 calorie surplus because I'm more likely to mentally break on those days, and I am just way hungrier on days I don't get good sleep. And the studies show that, and you're gonna find that out. You're gonna find that out too. So whenever you have a poor sleep, it's not the end of the world. Do damage control that whole day, get a good sleep, and then start again the next day. The key to this is consistency, and you cannot have consistency without having a good sleep. And this consistency also goes into actually training. If you have a poor sleep, you're hungry, and you're not training well, you're not gonna feel good. You're not gonna get better. Like, the key is to do this in moderation. If you feel like you're struggling extremely at any point, it might be time to end the weight cut. I know last year, I way overcooked the weight cut. I went down to I think 173 pounds, and I just couldn't maintain that weight. This year, I got down to 177 pounds. That 4 pounds difference meant the world. I could maintain 177. Maybe actually I'll stay 178, 179 my next weight cut, but overall it was a successful one, and I thought I'd pass on the knowledge to you guys, especially because I've said I'd be making this video for literally months now. So those are the 8 steps that I use to cut weight. And finally, there's so much more beyond the scope of this video that you're going to learn about cutting weight, and I can't talk too much about it because it's going to be extremely personal. So much of eating and diet is habitual, meaning your habits. And you're going to find that certain things trigger eating behaviors, or certain foods make you crave more foods, or certain times of day you want to avoid eating because you're going to overeat. So you're going to find that out yourself. You're going to find if what stresses trigger you. You're going to find calorie-dense foods you really enjoy eating, so maybe substitute them for something more fibrous, something more volume to fill your belly. Especially in the later stages, you're going to become very sensitive to habitual triggers. Now, before I end this video, I do want to reinforce that A, I'm not a medical professional. B, if you're thinking that you think you want to lose weight and you're not too sure, don't cut weight. You probably don't need it, especially if you're young and you haven't been doing this for minimum of 3 years, like training year-round for 3 years, 4 years. I wouldn't even try doing this because, in all honesty, you know nothing about the sport yet. You know very little about yourself. And you will find that out years later. This is for seasoned athletes only. On that note, thank you so much for watching the video. This video has been such a long time coming, so thank you for sticking with me. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. I'll have many more videos like this coming out. And yeah, thank you so much for watching.